Hello and welcome to episode 128 of The Dive Down, a Magic the Gathering podcast focused on the latest decks, trends, and strategies for the casual spike. My name is Stanislav here in Chicago, and with me on the line, in his finest pair of sweatpants, from Denver, Colorado, where it gets cold at night, it's the one and only Shane Beeps.
Just the two of us, contractually obligated to sing this at this point because we ain't got no Dave.
Okay. We got to get better at rhyming songs.
Remember how the other week we talked about how busy our lives were lately? Mm-hmm. Well, just, and then I'm stuck on an airplane because my flight was delayed. 3 hours, and then we lose Dave to work things, hashtag.
Yeah, he had to do a shift over at the diner.
Over at Dive Down Industries, where we, he's got to man the mines. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the mines of Modern Horizons 2. I'm really glad you did have Spike on last week, though, because he just said everything I was going to say. It was like having me on the podcast.
I love when he does that. I think about that all the time. It's just like, is he reading my notes?
He said literally word for word every take I had on every card. So it was like I was here.
It was like you were here.
I was sad to miss it. In full honesty, I was really upset. Like, I have not missed an episode in a long time. And then to miss the full set review part 1 of Modern Horizons was a big deal. It was one of our most popular episodes of all time. Surprise, surprise. Mm-hmm. Probably had nothing to do with Aspiring Spike being on it.
When he comes on, we usually get fewer listens.
Yeah, drastically fewer.
People are like, this Aspiring Spike?
No.
We need the real deals. Spikes. He was a great guest, and you were sorely missed. And now we're recording the new episode, part 2 of our Modern Horizons set review.
Yeah, so what this episode is basically going to be, we're going to finish up the stuff you guys didn't get to, which was what, like half of the multicolored and all of the artifacts and lands you didn't touch. And so we'll start. There's
some odds and ends. There's some
there's some random ones, and then all the reprints too. Yeah. So we'll start back in. We'll start from white, and so we'll have a few things in like Wooburg, and then we'll have a lot more, I think, in multicolored artifacts and lands and stuff like that. Because we got to talk about if Arid Mesa is really going to make an impact in Modern.
Spoiler alert. I don't think so. Before we do, can I get to my favorite part of every episode?
Please.
It's housekeeping.
My favorite.
Shout out to the newest patrons to join the Dive Down Nation. It's Scary23 and Granger H. Granger H. Or as the Australians might say, Granger H. Also, big thank you to Mike W. for going up a tier in their Patreon support. It means the world to us, and we appreciate it.
For sure. If you want to join the Patreon, head on over to patreon.com/thedivedown. All one word. There's a dot in there for the .com and a slash. Mm-hmm. But
is that www?
Yeah, the triple dub. We appreciate all the patrons out there. I love the loyalty and the ongoing support so many of you have been giving us over the last 2.5 years almost at this point, 2+ years of Patreon.
I've always wanted to ask you this, Shane. Do you prefer an HTTP or an HTTPS?
I use HTTPS anywhere. I force HTTPS.
You force? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm all about that encryption, my friend.
Wow. The S in Shane stands for security.
Yes.
A lot of people don't know that. It's actually Security Hane Beeps is your full name.
You can put a dot in your email address.
In Gmail,
yeah. It's s.hane for Security Hane. But if you'd like to keep us going, keep the lights on over at Dive Down Inc., get Dave that new nice apron for when he's down in the Dive Down mines. Mm-hmm. Help us out there. It's cool. If you don't want to support somebody else, we're cool. There's a lot of newer content creators who could probably use some support. They want to be able to afford an editor like we've been able to do for a couple of years. And if you want to do that, feel free. If you want to support us, feel free. We appreciate it. We're going to be here either way.
Is that a threat or a promise?
A little bit of both.
If you want to support the show while playing Magic, maybe test out some of these cool new cards in Modern Horizons, The best way to do that is with Mana Traders. A rental subscription will let you rent Magic Online cards. And if you use the coupon code TheDiveDown2021 when you sign up, you'll get 15% off your first 2 months of a rental account. Get out there and break the format. Oh, that was the end of the episode. Should we just wrap up or go back to the beginning? Memento.
No, just call it. I mean, we don't have Dave. We don't have Spike. What's the point of this episode?
Actually, Shane, I have a small favor to ask. Do you mind taking me on a little spin through Cool Decks Inc.?
Might as well. I was thinking, I didn't know what order we do this episode in, but we might as well keep the traditional break. I think we have a breakdown, a dive down, and a wind down, really, for this app. And so the breakdown will be Cool Decks Inc., the first one of Modern Horizons 2. And I am amped for this. We had a Modern Challenge on the weekend. And in the top 8 itself, there were 3 brand new decks, sort of. And I want to talk about 3 of them. Yeah, all 3 of those that I just mentioned. The first of which is Dom Harvey, SCG grinder, writer, and host of the lovely new Modern focused podcast, Dom in Aria's Judgment. There's a little play on where Dom. See how Dom Harvey, Ari Lax. They're doing a really good job. I really like the podcast. If they're even more modern focused than us, we've thrown in the Pioneer and the historic content. I don't know what Pioneer is anymore. That's just in our byline. But they're all modern all the time, and I think they're doing a great job. So check those 2 out. So Dom Harvey just casually showed up and won the Modern Challenge on this updated Hardened Scales list. And he stated in a tweet, the MH2 stuff sends this deck to the moon, and it's even more delightful to play now. Urza's Saga is broken! ! That bodes well.
Mm-hmm.
The deck is base green, of course, for some usual suspects like Hardened Scales, Ancient Stirrings. Splashes a bit into red, I think primarily for the activated ability of the new creature, Zabaz, the Glimmerwisp. And since we didn't talk about Zabaz last week, it's a 1 mana modular 1 creature and adds an extra 1/1 counter for all of your modular triggered abilities. So this works nicely with some of our typical Scales creatures like Hangerback Walker, Walking Ballista, Arcbound Worker, and of course, Arcbound Ravager, which is like tripled in price, to generate modular triggers, make a bunch of counters, create lethal situations for your opponent to deal with. There's support artifacts like the Ozolith, Power Conduit, Throne of Geth, all of these ways to sort of generate extra counters. And of course, Urza's Saga, the land that can make giant constructs when your board is full of other artifacts, and it gives you a large number of useful artifacts. When you're already getting a large number of other useful artifacts and creatures out there. So Scales looks like it's back. Get your Stony Silences ready.
Can I play Karn the Great Creator?
Why not? You can do that.
Yeah, so Urza Saga here, really interesting. It has to stick around for a minute. It's not like there's a bunch of Blood Moons flying around by any means, at least in this current metagame. But the third mode, search your library for an artifact with CMC 0 or 1 that gets most of the deck.
Yeah, it gets basically everything but Arcbound Ravager, which is a huge thing to miss, but there's so many other pieces of value in the deck otherwise. I think it actually, doesn't the Ozolith cost 2 as well?
Ozolith costs 1.
My goodness.
It gets that too.
Yeah, it's good. Good deck. I'm hyped. I'm hyped for Scales to be back in some way, shape, or form. Of course, Scales, like Dredge, is one of those decks where if there's enough hate out there, it might be more challenging. But I think there's a lot of ways for players who are good at this style of deck to generate value and have some fun.
One of the other new cards here is Power Depot, which is that artifact land that comes in taps for colorless.
Thanks for pointing that out.
And that has modular 1. What's interesting about talking about this card right now, right before we get to the set review, is that I just totally wrote that card off. And I'm both impressed and surprised that we can have a tapped land in the first place list of the first Modern Challenge, one of the first Modern Challenges after the set comes out.
Yeah, I'm curious. He didn't mention anything about what he thought about the land. I'm curious what we'll see in terms of how often it is played, if it becomes more or less of that land. So it's cool.
What else you got for me, Shane?
Temur Footfall's Cascade. So right after Dom in second place was Mr. Fister with Temur Footfalls. This deck is built around getting free Crashing Footfalls off of the Cascade trigger of either Violent Outburst or Shardless Agent. There's no actual 2 mana value or 1 mana value cards in the deck, So if you cast either Violent Outburst or Shardless, you're going to cascade into Footfalls and spit out a couple 4/4 Rhinos. But there's a lot of other interesting ways the deck gets interaction in terms of things like Bonecrusher Giant, Brazen Power, Fire Ice, Force of Negation, the new card Subtlety. There's a couple strong 4-drops like Jason Mind Sculptor, Cryptic Command, rounding out the deck. This deck seems cool. There's a lot of value cards here. There's getting a lot of value, and 4/4 Rhinos do not hurt as well.
Yeah, this might be one of the first cards I try once we start looking for content for our upcoming Sleeve Believe Heave video. I've never played with Shardless Agent.
Yeah.
Love the design, the very elegant design of this deck. It still has a ton of interaction with Bonecrusher Giant and Brazen Borrower, as you said, and Subtlety.
Yeah, I mean, Force stuff, Subtlety stuff.
Really, really neat. But because Shardless, because its CMC is 3 and it needs, anything that's 2 or less, even that Stomp doesn't come up when you Cascade, which I think is a little unintuitive. You know what I will say I'm a little surprised about is that it has no mana acceleration, right? You're just playing Shardless Agent on turn 3, get a simple, easy 2-for-1, a 3-mana 2/2, I guess. Seems good.
Yeah, it definitely is not kind of getting started out of the gate, but as early as turn 2, you can start interacting with your opponent. You can start bouncing stuff back to their hand. You can start stomping stuff. You have, of course, both Force and Subtlety, which, as we've mentioned in the previous episode, they work well together. When you have those cards, you can either force something if needed to. You can, I don't even know there's the verb to subtle something, but yeah, there's options.
It's like a gust. I think it's a gust effect. And you know what? You can just suspend Rhinos on turn 1 as well. I think that's a perfectly fine play. There's nothing else you can do to cheat them out.
Stan, that's far too fair.
That's true.
Speaking of fair, let's talk about the next deck real fast because we got a lot of cards to talk about. We've got Foodgaak, which is, I believe, a coin from Dom Harvey. Stan, are you looking at the Modern Challenge? Who was this pilot? I didn't actually write the pilot down.
It's Drew, 3141.
Well, this man from the year 3141. This is a deck I've been seeing on a lot of the Twitterverse, and this is a different build than I have been seeing. The main thrust of this deck appears to be generating food tokens through Asmo, as I will call her, and her Underworld Cookbook, along with Witch's Oven, Trail of Crumbs, and this then powers artifact synergies for cards like Emery and Metallic Rebuke. And then, of course, the Gak part of this deck comes from Feasting Troll King, a Throne of Eldraine staple. Normally costs 2 green for a 7/6 with Vigilance and Trample. More importantly, it can come back out of your graveyard by sacrificing 3 foods. And so one of the wild includes here to me is Oval Chase Daredevil. And that appears to be for refilling your hand with a card because it can be, if you discard this card, for example, into your graveyard, if you generate any artifact back onto the battlefield, then it goes back into your hand. That's I think it's a 3 and a black 4/2 or something like that. And what this does is it loops really cleanly with the cookbook because you can discard it to the cookbook and its tapped ability to generate a food, which then gets it back into your hand. I think it works that way, right? Because you discard it as part of the cost, and then you get it back. So with Asmo in play, you have all these foods, and that then allows you to remove opposing creatures if you need to by sacking 2 of those. I think this is a very grindy looking deck. Like you can grind your way to victory by removing creatures, by getting chip damage in, and then eventually sticking a Feasting Troll King to the battlefield, trample over whatever puny weaklings are on the other side. I have not seen this particular deck in action, but it looks like it can be explosive at times. It looks like it can grind at other times. I don't think this is the new Foodgaak, but it sure looks like a lot of fun if you like making food tokens.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this deck list, and outside of the mana base, the most expensive card in the set, or in this list, is still Asmar Anomar Decay Dastanak Yuldakar. Otherwise, it's practically a budget list. Like even the Feasting Troll Kings.
It's like $1, $2.
Yeah, they're less than $1. So I think that's neat. And maybe if this sticks around, now might be a good time to pick up those Troll Kings because I don't think they were seeing a ton of play outside. Like maybe they saw some standard play, but I feel like they're kind of bulk rare status until now.
Yeah, I've seen some similar decks to this. This one is definitely different than the ones I have been seeing. I've been seeing decks that are leaning more heavily into the discard synergy and not into the sort of artifact synergy. Like they're using Blazing Rootwalla, Burning Inquiry, Goblin Lore, Insolent Neonate, Street Wraith, and of course Asmo and her cookbook. And the deck is trying to power out Vengevines from the graveyard. You get free or cheap hollow ones. You're also generating food tokens to get back Feasting Troll King as well.
Mm-hmm.
What's hilarious to me is that this deck is using another Throne of Eldraine staple, Bartered Cow, a common 3 and a white 3/3 that generates a food token when it dies or is, more importantly in this deck, discarded. So great flavor, and it's great to see this card finally get its day in the sun. Bartered Cow.
Moo.
Yeah, I'm hyped to test out that deck more than anything else, honestly. The new Vengevine style decks, I think, look like a lot of fun. It's Hollow One's back, Vengevine's back. I'm amped.
Yes, I think these Asmore decks are kind of the breakout week 1 decks that are
probably one of them for sure. That
are probably getting the most hype in the immediate MTGO release. So something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean I think those decks, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like this is just the first stuff we're starting to see be successful. We've seen all sorts of decks on Twitter. I think over the next few weeks, we will definitely be keeping our ear to the ground, be testing some things, and keep you all in the loop on what people are doing with Modern Horizons 2.
Yeah, I mean, Saffron Olive has already figured out a way to play squirrels in Modern, so...
Yeah, I mean, one of the squirrels that I think you talked about last week is perhaps a legitimate one of in Yogg. So we'll see.
Life is good. All right, let's talk about some cards, shall we?
Dan, do you want to have an official? Do you want to do an official break? Do you want to have a stay with us?
Okay, we're going to take an official break right now. So I'm going to leave you with a stay with us. All right, so like we did last week, we're going to start with the white cards that we haven't touched on yet. You are going to hear us skip over cards pretty generously.
A lot of them.
If we think that they might be limited fodder, if we genuinely don't think that they have potential in Constructed Modern, we're going to save you the time and save us the effort. We might miss some playables as a result. We'll try not to.
Yeah. I mean, this second half, there's a lot of commons and uncommons, dumped in the final few days. So until we get back into the multicolored, I think we have just a handful of cards, maybe 10, 15, who knows?
We'll figure that out. So I'm going to try naming the cards we're skipping, but let me know if you want to speak to any of them. And Shane and listeners.
Yeah.
Shane, I can't see your notes. I'm only looking at my notes right now.
You should look at my notes because that'll tell you what I want to talk about.
Well, you can tell me. Do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about Javelineer only because it's a strict upgrade from Arcbound Worker if you have white in your deck. I think if someone figures out a white splash or a Naya or some kind of modular style deck, then Arcbound Javelineer will. Oh yeah, I probably shouldn't read these cards. Arcbound Javelineer is single white for 0/1. It comes out with modular 1, so it's a 1/2. You can tap it to remove X 1/1 counters from Arcbound Javelineer. It then deals X damage to target attacking or blocking creature. So there's just a little bit of upside over your typical Arcbound Worker.
Do you want to talk about Arcbound Prototype?
No, I think we can skip, honestly, all the way to,
Blossoming Calm?
I don't even think that, but I mean, this can't even be worth a sideboard slot, right? Blossoming Calm, which is what?
Single white mana for an instant. You gain hexproof until your next turn. So that's your turn and your opponent's turn.
Yeah.
You gain 2 life, and it has rebound. I think that's a lot of value, and I can imagine a universe where this is an effective sideboard card against burn decks.
I don't know. I feel like there's other ways you would do the same thing, but I mean, I could be wrong.
We'll find out.
Yeah. So yeah, we're skipping Arcbound Prototype, Barbed Spike, Blacksmith's Skill. We covered Blossoming Calm briefly. I think we skip Caprichrome, even though Devour Artifact is very cool. Disciple of the Sun, pass. Fairgrounds Patrol, nah. Guardian Kirin, nope. Healer's Flock, yeah, it's 3 Healer's Hawks. We get it. Knighted Mirror, Lens Flare, Marble Gargoyle, Nykthos Paragon, Piercing Rays, all no. Resurgent Belief, I think this is worth talking about. We're already back into what? This is the end of white, correct? We're still in white.
This is still a white card.
Resurgent Belief.
Right. So this has no casting cost.
It's free?
That seems dangerous. This is a sorcery with suspend 2 for 1 and a white. And it reads, return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Yeah, that's a legitimate card. There could be something there.
Do you think this only goes into Enchantress decks, or do you think you could actually generate a little value from this in anything that's running circumstantial, maybe enchantment-based removal?
Oh, yeah. A lot. I think there's definitely something here. Importantly, the suspend cost is cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good, right? The suspend 2 is cheap. Like that's one of the good things about the suspend cards in this set altogether, is that we can legitimately think about, suspend 2 is not suspend 4, obviously, right? But like you said, Stan, I think enchantment decks personally are going to be bad. But there's something definitely to be said in terms of enchantment-based removal, in terms of the oaths, in terms of there's prison decks that rely on their enchantments. Like if people are sort of picking off these individual enchantments one by one, and you just are like, well, here's my Resurgent Belief. Good luck, Joker. And then, I think there's a lot of options here. It's efficiently costed.
That's interesting. So maybe a deck running something like Ghostly Prison, like a red-white enchantment-based prison strategy.
Yeah, my nightmare.
Yeah. Do you think maybe this is coming in out of the sideboard once they're bringing in, all of their enchantment hate? You have like a little bit of recursion?
Potentially. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be the primary way it's played. I think there's a lot of other combo style things that are more important and more interesting. But I don't know if this is on my broken or useless list, but I think it's one of those things where it's going to be doing, if it's played, it's going to be doing things that you're like, oh no, not like this.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I think it's a pretty narrow role player that kind of demands like a certain type of build around plan. But I can see it being a little sneaky, a little sneaky stinker that just like, oh, now we're playing Cast Out in Modern because we can cycle it early and then get it back later if we really want to.
Why not?
All right, so I think we're going to skip Search the Premises.
Yep, gone.
Skyblade's Boon.
I would not look for that card. I'm frustrated by Skyblade's Boon because I think Griff's Boon is just better and was in a standard set.
Maybe it's just limited fodder. Soul of Migration, pretty expensive. Unbound Potential.
Nah.
Burdened Aerialist. I feel burdened just reading that card. Ethereum Spinner.
Nope. I'm doing a spin move past this.
Floodhound.
Nope.
Foul Watcher.
Upset this exists.
Don't you think this would go straight into your Nightmare Oathbreaker Commander deck?
Well, you know me. I love weird tribal decks.
All right. We are in blue territory now. We've been in blue territory. Hard Evidence.
No, but I love it. I love that this card exists. I think it's a cool card.
Inevitable Betrayal. So
okay.
Let's talk about another suspend card.
Another suspend one. Suspend 3, 1 blue. So rather than cast it from your hand because you can't, you have to pay 1 blue and exile it with 3 time counters on it. When this resolves, you search your target opponent's library for a creature card and put that card onto the battlefield under your control. Then that player shuffles. This is kind of good, right? Isn't this potentially really good?
I think this is bad on turn 6.
You think?
But I think in like an Ask for Told or Electro Dominant strategy where you can actually cast this early, I think this comes out of the sideboard and it's a huge haymaker.
Yeah, this could do cool things. Like this is a big card.
And the stuff that like everyone's looking at Emrakul, obviously, but if we consider the
Wurmcoil
possibility, Wurmcoil, that's a card. But even maybe these Unearth Persist decks.
Yeah.
Like if we see an actual graveyard strategy emerge out of the set because of Unmarked Grave, I can see this being one way to actually fight that deck in addition to Graveyard Hate, where you can both attack their graveyard and then yoink a card that's whatever their payoff is straight out of their library. But again, I think this is a pretty narrow card as well, where it's going to be really good in the deck that can make it work.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, never going to be cast fairly. I think it has to be like you said, the As for Told style cheaty decks. And like you said, I think it's in the sideboard. But then when it's there, I think there's a lot of cool things this card can do. And I would not be surprised to see it be part of a cool strategy.
Fun. Let's give it a Believe plus.
Yes. All right. Next up, Murktide Regent, which I also want to talk about.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, this is a cool card. CCI, Cool Cards Inc. Murktide Regent, 5 blue. Wait, that's expensive. Oh, wait, it does Delph.
Oh,
Each card you exile from your graveyard while casting this spell pays for 1 generic mana. So it can be as cheap as blue if you have 5 cards in your graveyard to delve away. It has flying. It's a 3/3. That's still not very good. Oh, wait. It enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each instant and sorcery card exile with it. So if you have the dream of 5 instant and sorceries and you cast it for blue, it enters the battlefield as an 8/8. And then again, when an instant or sorcery card leaves your graveyard, put a 1/1 counter on Murktide Regent. That's kind of gravy. That's potentially interesting if you are getting other cards out of your graveyard for some reason in the future. But yeah, I think what this card seems powerful. It's something that can be countered. It's something that can be, removed with non-fatal push, non-lightning bolt style things, right?
I mean, sometimes it will just die to bolt.
I mean, I don't think anyone's going to cast. I don't think people are going to be really casting it as a 3/3 that often. It can be, it can just be simply counterspelled, right? But it can also be a 3 mana 7/7 fairly easily. You know what I mean? I think that that's pretty reasonable. My question is for you, Stan, though, in a world of Shark Typhoon, is this that much better? Like, don't blue decks just want to have uncounterable flash sharks rather than something like this where it's conditional, you have to work for it?
Yeah, I do think that this is going to be at least a 2 mana 3/3, if not a 4/4, and maybe a 5/5 really often. And for 2 mana, you're not getting a shark. So I think this actually requires a little bit less of you.
Sure. Like you gain the mana efficiency.
Yeah, to get a threat. Let's be real, Shane. I want to believe. Like, this is the type of card that...
You got to do what?
I said I want to believe.
Got to do what? I got to believe. Stan, is that before your time, Parappa the Rapper?
I didn't play. I was an N64 kid, so I didn't really play the PlayStation hip-hop games.
Whoa. Stop the car, Stan.
So, do we agree casting this for blue is going to be really easy as early as turn 2? Like, even Death Shadow can just slot this instead of Garmage. And then they have like a flyer on turn 2. Anytime you get like a land, a Thought Scour, a Bauble, a Street Wraith.
People don't play Tombstalker right now in Shadow decks. And Tombstalker is on color for Shadow. I think that this card, the reason this card will work is because it's in blue and it's a Delve flyer. And I think it's going to fit better into that color strategy than the basic splash that Grixis Death Shadow had in the blue in the previously. So I think the fact that this is a double blue card says the kind of decks that are going to run it. And I think they're going to have more instants, more sorceries. They're going to be able to leave up counter magic, like you said. That's kind of an advantage of this, is where a big shark is always going to cost that mana. But a big Murktide Regent might leave you multiple counter spells up to protect it or something like that. So I think that's cool.
I think a big question for this card is, what's the best way to make it chonky? And are you just counting on Thought Scours, or are you maybe playing a bunch of cantrips?
I think you just play the game. Like, I think you just play Magic with this card in your deck, and it becomes what you want it to be. I don't think you really need to work to make this card a thing.
You think we can play this without Thought Scour?
I mean, I think Thought Scour makes it better. Like, if you want to power one out, sure. If you want to have a finisher in your deck that could run a card like this, I think you're also fine. If you want to play it like as a 2/of, as like a control deck finisher, then you're going to have a bunch of counter spells. You're going to have a bunch of Path to Exiles. You're going to have a bunch of stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, you have a few counter spells in your hand and you cast a chonky Murktide Regent and you're fine.
Mm-hmm. Is it okay that this is sometimes going to be a 3/3 or 4/4? Like,
I don't think it will.
If it's a 2 mana 3/3 flying, that maybe gets bigger if you have Snapcasters in your deck, for example.
So what did you delve away? Like 5 lands?
And maybe a Street Wraith and a Bauble.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a Tombstalker. I don't think it's a Tombstalker for Death Shadow. I think it's a Flying Dragon for different style of decks. But I think what we really agree on is that it has legs and it'll see some kind of play in some kind of decks, and we'll just have to be excited what they will end up being.
I don't know if I agree that it will see play. I agree that it's very, very interesting, but I think this card is sneaky hard to evaluate, and sometimes it's going to be a top deck when your opponent has played a Kaya's Guile against you in game 1, and then it just sits in your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has legs. I think it'll do something. It's not my style of card, but I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think we got to move on.
I hope you're right.
Okay.
And I agree. We do have to move on.
Yeah. Let's skip Parcel Mirror, Raving Visionary, Recalibrate, Specimen, Collector, Steelfin Whale, Cool Whale, Thought Monitor. This is a card I originally was just going to be like, not really something, but I'm starting to come around on this card. I think I kind of overlooked it early on.
All right. Thought Monitor, 6 and a blue forward artifact, creature, construct at rare. It's a 2/2 flyer with affinity for artifacts.
Oh, I was going to say, that seems really expensive for 6 and a blue.
Right, but if you have 6 artifacts around, it's just a single blue mana for a 2/2 flyer, and it has this extra line of text. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards.
Yeah, so it's like a Thoughtcast, but a little ornithopter thing.
It's a construct.
Construct this, 2 cards. Yeah, I mean, basically, it's just like, what? This is going to be an efficient way to draw 2 cards to get a 2/2 flyer, probably.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if this is a 1 mana 2/2 flying, draw 2, amazing.
I mean, that's best case scenario, though, right? That's my issue.
Here's my question. When is this not worth it? Is it worth? I think it's still worth it at 2. I actually think it's okay at 3 because of the drawing 2. Yeah. But like at 4 mana, doesn't it start to hurt?
Yeah. I mean, but if here's the thing, I think, is like you put this card in your deck to be synergistic. Like Emery sucks if you don't have artifacts too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this card is kind of like it's part of your overall game plan. If you don't have other artifacts on the board, you're losing the game anyway. So it sort of just works because the rest of your deck is working. I know it's kind of like not the best way to look at a card, but I think that this is one of those times where I'm tempted even not to look at the raw floor, because the raw floor is going to be one of those things where you're already losing, and it won't catch you back up, but probably 3/4 of the rest of your deck wouldn't either, because it's a synergy deck. And a lot of your cards are very bad on raw power. So this is kind of another one of those things where, yeah, it's not great by itself, but that's what your deck is designed to do. Be good as a collective.
Unlike the ability to turbo out the Murktide Regent, part of me worries that keeping 6 artifacts around is actually harder. And unless you have, this isn't going to go in Hardened Scales, but unless you have like that type of deck where you're just dumping a bunch of 0 and 1 mana artifacts that manage to stick around.
Sure. Affinity, baby.
Was Affinity able to cast this consistently?
Oh yeah,
like even with Mox Opal?
Oh yeah, you could do something like this in Affinity, I think, rather easily. That's the thing though, is like I think a lot of times Thoughtcast became one of those cards you didn't even main deck that often, because it was just like, well, what am I really doing here? Is it that valuable? So yeah, Thought Monitor, I think we'll wait and see. It's better than I originally thought. I think I'm willing to believe. Stan,
Shane,
you want to move on to Tide Shaper? You talked about this last week, so yeah, no matter. I don't need to talk about this again. I forgot. This is one of those things you were just like, we need to talk about this. Emergency breaking.
I was like, boop, 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 boop.
Tide Shaper. All right, break the ice.
Okay, so
black sorcery.
Yeah.
Destroy target land that is snow or could produce colorless, and has overload for black, and then destroys each instead of target. So that's kind of brutal. Yeah, I mean, this is a heavy black based card, right? Like having black mana is not the easiest thing in the universe, but it's truly brutal.
I think if David was here, he would say this is a sinkhole effect, which is a black destroy target land. This is narrow, right? Like, how often is snowlands or colorless lands actually relevant in kind of like your average modern game?
I mean, it's a sideboard card. It's just another in the Hey Screwtron series, I think.
Yeah. I do wonder whether Tron can really stick around in this world based on some of the stuff we're seeing in this set and just in general. But
I feel like the hardest thing though is like black is a very particular style of deck. There's not a lot of decks, I think, right now that are designed to cast a spell like this, at least early.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to wait and see. I think there's just another piece of utility that's just like, yeah, it sucks to be Tron sometimes.
Yeah, maybe if Esper Control sticks around, which I kind of think it will, this could be some sideboard technology against Tron. Though I'm of the opinion that I don't know how much longer we're going to need to be dedicating anti-Tron cards as much as just cards that are also good against Tron, like generic counterspells.
I hate to see it. I hate to see there's so much Tron hate in this set, so much Eldrazi Tron hate, colorless land hate. But Tron people are gonna keep doing what they're doing, including me sometimes. So
I hope so. I mean, I bought that deck during quarantine, and I never got to play it in paper.
You can always have fun with Tron.
All right, next card. I actually think as we're talking about alphabetical next card, Cabal Initiate.
Okay.
1 in a black human warlock. It's a 2/1, and it reads: discard a card. Cabal Initiate gains lifelink until end of turn. It also has Threshold. It gets +1/+2 as long as 7 or more cards are in your graveyard. It just, Shane, this card says discard a card.
That's a good point.
It's a free discard enabler.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you can do that the turn it comes down.
What other free discard enablers do we have for 2? Lotless Troll is like what, Golgari, right?
I mean, I think technically Underworld Cookbook, but
no, you have to tap that, so you can't use it over and over again.
That makes sense.
You'll be right. There might be something there. It's easy to cast. It's single colorless and a black, so go for it. Single generic and a black.
This to me is like a useless or broken card.
Potentially.
The 2 vibes.
Do you want to talk about broken card?
Yeah, let's do it.
Dauthi Voidwalker, another black creature, Dauthi Rogue, rare. It's a 3/2. It has Shadow, which can only block or be blocked by creatures with Shadow. There's not a lot of those that see any play. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it with a Void counter on it. You can tap and sacrifice Dauthi Voidwalker. You can choose an exile card an opponent owns with a Void counter on it. You can then play it this turn without paying its mana cost. Yeah.
Wee. So what's cool about this design is that
it's broken.
This card is so good. But I love that. Let's say someone, bolts or stomps the first Dauthi Voidwalker. It dies really easily. And maybe that's a good thing. But because of how these void counters work, I think this is an example where the next Dauthi you cast can play whatever the first Dauthi helped exile.
They're not even legendary. So you can just have 2. You can just have 2 out there. Just play 2. Why not?
I think this card's incredible. Maybe possibly the best black card in the set.
I think it might be the best card in the set. Full stop. I think.
I don't know if I'm ready to go that far, but you might be proven correct eventually.
I mean, the floor. It's in the floor alone. 2 mana value, 3/2 unblockable. That also acts as a leyline bear. It also has the random upside of just winning the game. If you happen to exile something incredible through something like discard, through something like your favorite card, Thought Scour, whatever. So note this is also another great combo with Luris.
I'm absolutely looking for as many reasons as possible to cast Thought Scour on my opponents, to Shane's chagrin, and now you can't even fault me for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say this now. I wasn't here last week. Luris cannot survive Modern Horizons 2, in my opinion. There's no way Luris can survive the coming months of this metagame, unless other things are so much worse than it that it sort of sneaks through for a while. There's just so much at 2 or less that's a permanent. That's just going to be bonkers.
Can't wait.
Yeah, this card's super good. I think this card's amazing. I just hate it does so many things.
It's also versatile. I don't think this is a type of card that just needs to go in a specialized deck. You can just play this in any black mid-range plan.
It's just value. Think about this in a maybe some sort of mid-rangey deck that has discard.
Yeah.
And it can cast this reliably on turn 2. With the mana we have these days, it's pretty good. Yeah, you're good to go. You incidentally get value off it, and you incidentally get the chance to just steal a game with something insane.
It doesn't even need to have yes, you're probably playing this in the same deck as Thoughtseizes, but you can also cast the cards you kill with a Fatal Push.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're right.
Right? It's just like a cruise value any way you play mid-range.
It's bonkers. It's bonkers good. I know that people have been extremely high on this card. I don't know if they're high enough. I think it's super good.
All right, let's keep going.
Echoing Return, nah. Let's just say what we're going to skip. We're going to skip probably Echoing Return, Guildblade Prowler.
Hold on.
What?
I think Echoing Return might be sneaky good.
Okay, tell me why. I'm all ears.
It's a single black sorcery, return target creature and all other cards with the same name as that card from your graveyard to your hand. First of all, this is a 1-mana spell that is possibly going to generate significant card advantage. And I think this is another example where you might be able to enable some kind of crazy loop where you're discarding stuff, drawing it all back, and generating value with your graveyard that way without that much of an opportunity cost.
Yeah. I think this is a card that probably goes into a specialized deck.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. This is not Dothy.
It's not Dothy. It's not even Village Rites. You know what I mean? Like Village Rites saw less play than I thought, sort of generally. Right. And a card like this won't see general play either. But I think you're right, where there's some utility here.
Yeah, I think it might be a combo card in some kind of weird black recursive strategy.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me pontificate.
Guilt Blade Prowler, nah. Hellmongrel, no. Loathsome Curator, no. Magus of the Bridge, useless or broken. Triple black basically has Bridge from Below text, where if a non-token creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, create a 2/2 black zombie token. And then when a creature is put into opponent's graveyard from the battlefield, exile Magus of the Bridge. It's a 4/4. Pretty good body. I mean, it's also black. That's pretty tough to cast. I don't know. Bridge worked because it didn't cost anything to make it work.
Yeah. Also, if this is on your board, it gets exiled. Unlike Bridge, which was only getting exiled if it was in your graveyard.
Yeah, I think it's not a great card. I think it's a cool Magus effect, but I don't think it's going to do anything.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think it's worth keeping an eye on because it's templated like a card that was routinely broken and then had to get banned. And I think they designed this to kind of fill some kind of role, right? I don't think they're just making this to juke people who loved old Bridge Vine strategies, for example. And even though you're probably right that it doesn't get there, like it dodges Bolt. I think that's not insignificant. And maybe this is some way to enable like a big combo turn to make a bunch of 2/2 black zombies that help you win the game on the spot or the next turn.
Yeah, we've given this card more time than it deserves. Tell us the next things we're skipping, Stan.
Okay. Necrogoyf. We're skipping Necrogoyf. We're skipping Nested Shambler. We're skipping Radiant Epicure. We're not talking about that spooky starfish. We're also not talking about Tizarus Charger. I don't think we're talking about Tragic Fall. I don't remember if we've ever even talked about Tragic Slip.
I don't think so.
I think Vermin Gorger is a pass. I think we're passing on Vile Entomber.
Yeah, no.
So that's black. We're done with black. We did it.
Into red.
Yeah, we're talking about red now. Arcbound Slasher.
No.
If this card sees play, we riot.
Is that a joke? Is there riot on the card? Is that the joke?
Yeah. I think it's a good joke.
That's a good joke.
Arcbound Tracker. If this card sees play, we modular too.
Agreed.
All right. Here's a card I think we can actually talk about. It's Bloodbraid Marauder.
Yeah, it's a thing.
1 in a red, Human Berserker, 3/1, and it cannot block, but it has Delirium.
That sounds bad, Stan.
I don't think this card is meant to block. I think this card is meant to do other stuff, especially when its Delirium is online. This card has Cascade as long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So it's a 2-mana Cascade, meaning it can only cascade into 1 or 0 mana spells. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, there's something here. I do want to say Delirium is harder than you think to get. It's not as automatic as you think it is, especially early. It's great on cards like Traverse, because Traverse, the Ulvenwald, does something early and does something late when Delirium's live. I've played Grimflayer many years ago. It's not really online that often. This card needs to go in a particular style of deck. I think it will do something, but I don't think it's not as automatic as you may think it is. It doesn't just go into a deck and work.
Agreed. Yeah, you're going to have to work for it. I think it feels awkward in Shadow because, like, let's say you can get Delirium online early with a Bauble and a Street Wraith and a land and any other thing, and then you cascade into a Shadow too early, it just dies on the spot. So I think maybe this is a way to get free spells for free.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some potential. Stan, our pace is not good yet. We gotta move faster. I'm worried about this.
I think we just love chatting. All right, let's skip Captain Ripley Vance.
Please.
I don't think there's much to say about Faithless Salvaging. Either they tested this to make Phoenix work, or is it Charm, which doesn't really see play. We can talk about Fury. It's the red elemental from...
Yeah, I think we have to, just because it's the elemental incarnation thing.
It's the elemental incarnation thing. It's 3 red for a 3/3 double strike. When it ETBs, it deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures or planeswalkers.
Yeah, no flash on this one. So it's purely on your turn.
Yeah. 3/3 double striker that can only tag creatures and walkers. I think this could be okay in certain decks. The fact that it probably is pretty powerful with Obosh, I think, is noteworthy. It swings for 12 with an Obosh in play. What do you think, Shane?
I don't know. There might be something there. I think it's the weakest. I'm surprised I didn't give this flash. Maybe he was too good at that point. I think Fury's not great. I think it's a bad red mythic, but we will see.
We skipped over Flame Blitz. It's not even in our notes, but I think that's an interesting one we can touch on. The single red enchantment at the beginning of your end step. It deals 5 damage to each planeswalker. And
we did talk about that last week?
I don't think so. I think it got spoiled late.
No. Okay. Yeah, this is a great card. This card is, I think, being overlooked. It's like you said, single red mana enchantment. This will be a powerful piece of Planeswalker hate because it also has cycling too. It doesn't even hurt to have multiple.
The fact that it has cycling 2 makes me wonder if you can just play one main.
No, you cannot. I mean, it depends on the deck, of course, but I mean, cycling 2 still costs a card.
But you get a card back. All right, Gargadon. I think that's a pass. Goblin Trap Runner. It's a coin flip card. I've never seen a coin flip card that I thought was worth talking about. Gouged Zealot. That's a pass. Kaleidoscope. Kaleidoscorch. Thank you. Cool design, but I don't think it's all that interesting for us. Lightning Spear. That's a pass. Mine Collapse.
No, I don't think so, Tim.
It's kind of free. 3 in a red instant. If it's your turn, you may sack a mountain rather than play the spell's mana cost. It deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker.
No, you just play something else. You just play that enchantment. There's no reason for you to only hit a creature or planeswalker for the cost of a mountain and this card. I think.
Yeah, you're probably right. Mount Velus Manticore. That's a pass.
No.
Revolutionist.
No.
Strike It Rich.
Yeah, did you talk about this already? I didn't hear you talk about it last week, did you?
Listen, if we did, we liked it then, and I think we like it now. Single red sorcery, create a treasure token, and it has flashback, 2 in a red. Listen, maybe one day Manamorphose gets banned and we can play this in Prowess or Storm.
I mean, this is a unique effect for a cheap cost. It triggers Magecraft as well as Prowess. So,
I think it's also them exploring how they can template free mana in a slightly safer way, potentially.
Yeah. All right. A bunch of stuff we're skipping. I almost don't even want to talk about them, but Tavern Scoundrel, Unholy Heat, Viashino Lashclaw, Bannerhide Cruciak, Blessed Respite. Oh, we're in green now.
Yeah.
Blessed Respite, Chitter Spitter, Crack Open, Deepwood Denizen, Duskshell Crawler, Flourishing Strike, Foundation Breaker, maybe sideboard, probably a pass. Funnel Web Recluse, Glimmer Bairn. Stan, I know you have something you like about this.
I wrote so much about Glimmer Bairn. It's like, I think this card loses a lot of its appeal if you can't see the beautiful art. It's my favorite art in the set, and maybe will inspire my first foray into cosplay. I would look really good in that outfit. This is probably a nothing burger. And maybe it's just a popper card, but I'm going to read it really quick. Single green for a 1/2, sacrifice a token. It gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Maybe it's a payoff in some kind of weird critical mass token deck. Last week we talked about that card that makes 3 tokens, and then we talked about that other card that doubles the amount of tokens you make, or triples even. We've got a bunch of squirrels going on here. We got stuff that makes like pests and saplings. Eldrazi Scion. Like,
it's efficient.
It's probably just like a Popper ATOG replacement.
Pauper Staple Glimmer Bairn. Weird bee thing. What is that? Is it a butterfly?
I think it's an oof wearing a Halloween costume.
Cool.
I want to believe, and
you gotta do what?
I gotta believe. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Jewel-Eyed Cobra.
Nope.
Smell Fear.
That card smells.
Rens, Run, Hydra. Hydra's that scale with mana. Don't see Modern play now. I don't see why this one would. Arcus Acolyte, that's a pass. Breathless Night, that looks like a pass. There's a ton of text on this card.
Hold on. So we're into multi?
Yeah, we're in the gold cards now, dog.
Okay, good. So we're almost caught up.
Yeah, we're doing okay. Don't panic, Shane, baby. Captured by Legax.
No,
it's fun. Chrome Courier, that's a skip. We're skipping combined
Chrysalis.
Combine Chrysalis.
Cool card. Cool card.
Dakon Shadow Slayer. We talked about this last week, right?
I feel like
maybe we didn't get through the gold cards. Actually,
no. I think this is where you ended up.
Yeah, Dakon Shadow Slayer. This is a walker for white, blue, black. So if you can produce Esper mana, this is a 3-mana walker. It has a static ability where Dakon Shadow Slayer enters the battlefield with a number of loyalty counters on him equal to the number of lands you control. So minimum, it's a 3 loyalty walker, scales upward throughout the game. +1 Surveil 2, -3 exile target creature. -6, you may put an artifact card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield. I believe Aaron Forsyth said they tested that final ability to allow players to fetch and found that was too powerful. So they scaled it back. And I thought this card was interesting before I heard the fact that they needed to scale it back. This does a lot, right? It fills your yard. It can maybe put something into your graveyard for you to cheat out. That artifact, it doesn't need to be like an equipment or something. So you want to think about Stoneblade, but you don't have to, right? You can think about like, what is it? Blightsteel Colossus or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you know why you think we talked about this, Hank? Because we did on the very first early spoilers episode.
Oh, that's probably it.
I don't know. I don't think this is very good, but at least it's not busted for a 3-mana walker. I think this might see play in particular builds. I think it's cool that walkers are like this. I think the walkers in the set are cool because they are not just raw amazement. Like I think they have to be part of a strategy. And so I think this is another one of those cards, and I'm happy to see it.
Let's move on.
Yeah. All right. Dihada's Ploy, no. Dray Keeper, no, but great art. Ether Sworn Sphinx, I think this is a very safe but very fun. I don't know. It's a 7 white blue affinity for artifacts, Flying Cascade. So if it does something, it's going to do a cool something, probably. But the problem is that all the artifacts you put in your deck to make this thing work are going to mess up your Cascade.
Yeah. Because it just cascades into anything and everything.
That'd be very bad.
Imagine cascading to a bauble.
No, I don't want to. That sounds very bad. Fondery Helix, probably not. Probably not. It's just too expensive for what it's doing. Garth One Eye, coolest card. Cool card. I think we talked about this in the early spoiler episode. It's that Wooburg one where you can do one of 6 things, including make a Black Lotus token.
I don't think we talked about this one yet.
Oh, we definitely did. You basically you can tap Garth One Eye, who costs Wooburg for a 5/5. You can tap it to make anything that hasn't already been chosen from stuff from Alpha. Disenchant, Brain Geyser, Terror, Shivan Dragon, Regrowth, and Black Lotus. And you can make a copy of that card with a chosen name. You can cast the copy. You still pay its costs. I didn't realize that. That's much worse than I anticipated. But I guess getting a free Shivan Dragon's a little busted.
Mm-hmm.
But note that Black Lotus does cost 0, 1?
It does. It's a 0.
Fair and balanced Magic card. Not going to happen, but thank you for making this card, Watsy.
Until there's a way to cheat out Wooburg mana.
Yeah.
This is a commander card. And maybe the sweetest commander card I've ever seen.
I'm going to read this third. No, this is the second walker. We didn't cover any of the walkers yet. I'm impressed. Gaeadrone Dihada, 1 Grixis, Legendary Planeswalker Data. She's a 4 loyalty. Protection from permanents with corruption counters on them. What's a corruption counter?
I think it's that thing from Horizon Zero Dawn that, some of the robots have corruption.
Oh, I didn't know that. I've only briefly played that game. If you +1, each opponent loses 2 life. You gain 2 life. Cool. Oh, you also put a corruption counter on up to 1 other target creature or planeswalker. -3, you gain control of target creature or planeswalker until end of turn. You untap it and put a corruption counter on it. It gains haste until end of turn. -7, you gain control of each permanent with a corruption counter on it.
Shane.
No, this card's pretty cool.
I think this card's incredible.
You're insane, but go on.
Well, first of all, I like that she protects herself with a plus ability.
She does not truly protect herself.
But she does, because
How?
she has protection from permanents with corruption counters on them. And let's say your opponent only has one
Okay.
creature.
That's like faux-tection.
Right. But it will line up in that way where you're playing Grixis, so you're controlling the board. You let one thing survive. You play her, tick it up, and they can't attack her.
I think 4-mana walkers should be... I think you should plan on a 4-mana walker protecting itself in some way. So I think that's fine. Go on.
Cool. I think the -3 both allows you to somehow pressure your opponent while also protecting her, because you get to put a corruption counter on it. And then the -7, it's like, sure, you win the game because you vaulted a walker.
So I do think that this is a cool card if Grixis control is good. And I think that's something that Spike said. I think I have hidden his column because he's not on this episode. If Grixis control is decent, this card will see play. It will allow you to slowly take over a game. That's dope. I think there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. Well, I mean, I think there's a few things you can do with it, and it'll be very good at doing those things if you have some kind of protection, some kind of counter spell, some kind of removal. I think you're going to be good to go, and this card will fit into that. I also heard on a different podcast, I forget which one it was, but they were repeating. Oh, it was the other new modern podcast called Mishra's Babble.
Oh, I've heard of that show.
Yeah, with some not quite friends of the show, but people that we've interacted with.
Hey, Shane.
Yeah.
We might have some friends of the show on Mishra's Babble.
Oh, really?
I'll just leave it at that. Winky.
So life gain in Grixis is good. It's not a thing you commonly get. So this is life gain in Grixis. So I think it's good. I think that this card will see some kind of play, but only if the deck that it's going to go in is going to be okay. I don't think it's going to make a deck good by itself.
Yeah, I agree. And then you're just going to cider out a ton when you don't have like an opponent who plays creatures or walkers. Cool. Goblin Anarchomancer.
This card is wild.
Red green for a 2/2. Each spell you cast that's red or green costs 1 less to cast.
1 generic less to cast.
Correct. Thank you.
So yeah, each spell. This is not instant or sorcery. Each spell you cast that's red or green, if it has generic mana and the casting cost, 1 less.
So last week with Spike, we were talking about what's going to be the red-green storm enabler, and I think this is it.
Here it is, baby.
I kind of love it.
Yeah, I mean, green does everything now. So it's not like you need blue.
It does everything. I like that it makes all of your spells cheaper, not just your rituals, but even your storm payoffs. Let's say your storm payoff is a creature. Maybe you're playing other creatures. I think there's something going on here.
Yeah, this will be a deck that people will play. People will test this deck. You will go up against this deck, whether or not it's in a league or the practice rooms or something like that, or in your LGS. You're going to see this card on the battlefield, and something broken will happen to you at least once. And then, depending on how good it is at doing that over and over and over again, remains to be seen.
So I wonder if this card is so flexible that you can even toss it into like a red-green X Zoo deck, or even Panza.
The rate's not there is the thing. Panza maybe, because then you get kind of the ongoing mana advantage that you accrue.
Mm-hmm.
But like, this is not like a Burning Tree Emissary, like Bushwhacker Zoo. This is not like a Tribal Flames type thing, I don't think. Simply because you need to move a little bit faster than this card enables you to do. But I think you're onto something where it's like, how much value is this generating me over the course of a game in like a Panza style deck?
Yeah, it survives Lava Dart.
That's important these days. I hear that's a popular card.
Card's good. Okay, let's move on.
Please.
Graceful Restoration.
Gotta pass.
Grist the Hunger Tide.
Yes. So sick.
YES.
I love this card. It's my new friend Grist. A bunch of insects in a trench coat. So Grist is a legendary planeswalker for 1 black green. If you're playing at home, that's Golgari. As long as Grist the Hunger Tide isn't on the battlefield, it's a 1/1 insect creature in addition to its other types. So everyone else knows until it shows up. That's secretly just an insect. You can +1. It comes down with 3 loyalty. You can +1. Create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token, then mill a card. If an insect card was milled this way, put a loyalty counter on Grist and repeat this process. So all you insect tribal fans out there, going to do well with Grist. -2, you may sacrifice a creature. When you do, destroy target creature or planeswalker. -5, each opponent loses life equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Okay, so this is an important card for a number of reasons. One, it's a 3-mana walker that protects itself, truly protects itself. There's like, I think the list of 3-mana walkers that does that is like 2. It's Nissa, 3-mana Nissa that makes a 0/1 plant token. This is a legitimate, 1/1. It's a little bit better than the 0/1. So there's that. I forget the other one. It might be like one of the random Ashioks or something like that. So that's important. Step number 1 is at least a 3-mana walker that protects itself and then has some ongoing value. The is it on the battlefield thing is wild, okay? You can chord for it. You can Eldritch Evolution into it. You can Coco into this. You can basically, any way you have of getting a creature out of your deck or out of your graveyard, you can do that. So this gives you planeswalker value with creature, like with the ability to fetch it up like a creature. That's really great. So that is awesome for a number of decks. The one that people I think are most excited about are like Yawgmoth folks, because you can tutor this really easily out of your deck. And it gives you things that you didn't have really good access to before, like planeswalker interaction or creature interaction. And sacrificing creatures is often valuable in your deck because there's so many things with Undying. So you're able to get that Undying creature back while killing another creature, or more importantly, probably killing another planeswalker. And then Grist still stays on the battlefield to give you insect tokens for you to sacrifice to Yawgmoth. Like having tokens on the battlefield is really valuable for a deck that wants to sacrifice things in some way, or make like 1/1s in some way. So it's just one of those things where you're going to get a lot of value out of this in the decks that need it. And that's what's dope, is because it's not the thing that's just like, I'm a raw value. It's the type of thing that in the deck that's going to use it well, it's going to be dope. And that's my long and short of Grist, I think. This is one of the cards I'm most excited to play with. I'm amped to hear the Yogg people's experiences playing this card. So far, it seems quite good, and I'm hyped.
Cosign.
Thanks, bud. Lazotep Chancellor, nah. Lonis Cryptozoologist, probably no. It's a very sneaky snick. I don't think it's going to see modern play. Master of Death. This card, it's easy to overlook. It might do something broken. I'm just going to read it. 1 blue-black, zombie wizard. When it enters the battlefield, you surveil 2. That means you can look at the top 2 cards of your library, put them in your graveyard if you want. At the beginning of your upkeep, if it's in your graveyard, you may pay 1 life. If you do, return it to your hand. There's some loops to be had there. It doesn't dredge, that's for sure. But I think that people are I think in other extended formats, they're liking Master of Death. So we'll see what it does.
All right. This next card is a weird one, and it's called Moderation.
Yeah.
1 white, blue for an enchantment. You cannot cast more than 1 spell each turn. And that's just you. This is not symmetrical. But whenever you cast a spell, draw a card. This is like either incredible or borderline unplayable. I don't think it's useless or broken. I think it's just either like a great value engine or like a trap.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too expensive to be a value engine, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this do something interesting.
I'm pretty sure it already appeared in a blue-white control deck in one of the modern challenges over the weekend.
Yeah, put it in a Fires deck somewhere. I don't even know where Fires is legal. I don't think modern. Is Fires banned in modern?
It is not.
What? It doesn't see play? Why not? Do something cool.
It's
legal in modern.
I'm trying to
play
figure
Fires.
out.
Play Jeskai Fires with moderation.
I'm like convinced I saw it somewhere, but it's a little hard to figure out exactly where I saw that. But I'm 90% positive I already saw it appear in some deck.
Yeah, I'm sure it's doing something.
If you're playing draw go control, like this is something
me. I love playing draw go control.
It is your favorite deck. This is something you can tap out for and protect with a Force of Negation. Not that you even necessarily need to protect it, because no one's playing enchantment removal except Esper Charm players. And then you can just like make shark tokens or cast a walker and draw tons of cards. Like maybe this can make Approach of the Second Sun playable, or just win with Teferis and colonnades. Maybe blue-eye control decks don't need to cast more than one spell per turn, and the only place I can see that being real painful is in maybe control mirrors, where you have to get into counter wars.
Yeah, I just feel like I want other ways to cast spells. Like I want fires or something like that, right? Or I want a lot of stuff I can do on my opponent's turn, because then it lets me sort of double spell this a lot, because I'm doing that also on my opponent's turn. We'll see.
All right. Do you want to talk about Piru the Volatile?
No, because I don't like upkeep costs on my creatures.
Priest of Fellrights?
Yeah, this card is really good. I think this card is sneaky good. I think people are kind of overlooking it for now. I don't think they will for long. White and a black, Human Warlock, 2/2 rare. You can tap it and pay 3 life, and you sacrifice the priest. You return a target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It also has Unearth, 3 black-white, to get this back onto the battlefield to do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just another way to get a great card. Target creature card, not legendary, not non-legendary, any creature card out of your graveyard onto the battlefield. This will be part of Reanimator strategies. It's too good not to. It's too cheap not to. You can do it as early as turn 3, and unearthing it to do it again. The card does what you want it to do, which is you sacrifice it, and then you can unearth it later when you have the opportunity to do so. You probably are having other kind of unearth cards already. Like if you have, what's the card that people have been talking about, Stan, the black one that's not legendary. Yeah, you could play it in a persist deck to cheat on the unearth cost and then do it again. So it's just like there's all kind of ways that this fits into the kind of decks that want to play this card. I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah, I like that you can literally cast Unearth on this to get it back. Claim to Fame.
Yeah, this is a super grindy card. Like just grind city, even if it's not a cheaty deck, it's just a grindy card. And Modern is the type of place where grinding sometimes can be good.
I don't think it's going to be your sole enabler in whatever the Reanimator deck looks like, but whether it's copies, the extra 8 copies of Persist or something else, I think this is going to help your deck remain redundant if there is a black-white based, Unburial Rights style strategy.
For sure.
Moving on, Prophetic Titan.
No.
Should have been in Kaldheim. Rakdos Headliner.
Okay, this isn't terrible.
Yeah.
But it's also probably not good. I mean, let's read it. Let's read it and let the listeners decide with us.
Red, black, 3/3 haste. It's a devil. And it has Echo. Discard a card at the beginning of your upkeep if this came under your combat. Since the beginning of your last upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay its Echo cost. 2 mana, 3/3 haste. That seems like an okay aggro creature, but it also expects you to discard a card. We see some madness stuff in this set. We have old madness cards as well. Maybe this can make an aggro madness deck have a little bit of oil in its gears.
Yeah, I feel like it's more like a limited card than a constructed card, but one of those things where it's like, it does do what you want. I wish it discarded on the turn it came in, because then it could be really crazy. You could be like, here's my 3/3 haste for 2. That's also getting me like a cheap madness enabler, but you have to wait till your next upkeep to do that, to get the discard. So I don't know. We'll
see. Ravenous Squirrel.
Yeah, big squirrel potential here. I don't think so. Road to Ruin?
I'm not feeling it.
Stan, I have to say, I'm kind of upset.
What's wrong, Shane?
The split cards in this are so safely costed, and they have such good names. Like there's so many good names that they wasted on these super safe split cards.
Yeah. So, I mean, the road side is an instant. It's a 3 mana instant speed ramp card.
Yeah.
It puts the land right on the battlefield. I think that's kind of cool.
Tapped.
Yeah, but you're playing this on your opponent's turn anyway.
Sure.
And then, hold on, let me turn my head to read the ruin side.
Aftermath, 1 red, deals damage equal to target creature.
Yeah.
Equal to no, it's terrible.
That stinks.
That's terrible. These cards are so safe.
We've talked about it for too long.
Way too long.
Storm God's Oracle. That's a pass.
No.
Sithis Harvest's Hand.
If you think Enchantress will be a thing, this is going to be in it.
Yeah, I think it's a believe minus.
That's the one. So it's the 1/2. It's the 1/2 when you cast an enchantment, you gain a life and draw a card for Selesnya mana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'll love it. Enchantment people, they're gonna love it. Terminal Agony, Wave Sifter, pass. Academy Manufacturer. We're into artifacts. Academy Manufacturer. Okay, originally, another one of those cards where I was like, this seems pretty marginal.
Yeah.
The more I think about this, and honestly, the more we're late in the spoiler season. We're past spoiler season.
Yeah, we're really digging the bottom of the barrel, trying to make anything work at this point.
I'm reading articles. People are like, look, this does something. So it's a three mana 1/3. If you would create a clue, a food, or a treasure token, instead create one of each.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is not in itself powerful, but it's powerful if you have a way to abuse these tokens.
So
right?
Last week, I was trying to convince last week's co-hosts that Fey Offering was worth a look.
It might be.
And that's the 3-mana enchantment where you can make a clue, a food, and a treasure.
Yeah.
Maybe these two cards are just supposed to be a combo and limited, but imagine having them together. That's so many tokens. And then you got your little butterfly oof out.
Yeah.
You're just winning. I
mean,
mean,
food doesn't suck. I mean, there's broken ways or semi-broken ways to use food. There's fair ways to use food. It does gain you life.
Dude, treasures don't suck. I mean,
treasure's really good.
It's so much mana. And yeah, I think this is the type of card. Maybe it's useless or broken. Like you have to put it in a very dedicated deck that's going to maximize how many tokens you can generate. And I think it's supposed to, if it sees play, like you need to generate a ton of tokens either the turn it comes down or the following, right? This can't really stick around. I think it wants to do something explosive quickly. It is 3 mana and it dies to Bolt. A 3 mana artifact is a little bit of a liability, but I just think that effect can get out of hand. If someone's devoted to Academy Manufactor, tweet us. I want to see it work.
All right, what are we skipping next, Dan?
I don't think we're going to talk about Ultra of the Goyf.
No.
I don't think we're talking about Batterbone.
That ain't Batterskull.
I don't think we're even talking about Bottle Golems.
No.
Dermotaxi? It's a rare.
Even if this is good, I feel like it's conditional enough to not be good. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a 2-mana 0/0, so that seems suspicious.
Man, Stan, I just don't want to talk about this card. Like, it's one of those cards I just don't like so much that even if it's good, I'm fine being like, we didn't talk about it. Unless you want to talk about this card.
How about I read it? I just, you know what I love? That Mark Zug art.
It's good.
Classic Magic, like Invasion era art. It has imprint when it enters the battlefield. Exile a creature card from a graveyard, any graveyard.
Yard.
Then it has tap 2 untapped creatures you control until end of turn. Dermotaxi becomes a copy of the imprinted card, except it's a vehicle artifact in addition to its other types.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this also goes into the Reanimator decks? Or maybe you play it as hate against Reanimator decks if you're in some kind of creature strategy.
I mean, who knows?
The design is neat.
Yeah, the art is neat.
Maybe the folks over at the Serum Visions podcast can make a deck, and then I'll come on their show and talk about playing it.
This is against the odds tier.
All right, we talked about Diamond Lion when it was first spoiled.
It's still bad.
I don't think we need to revisit it. Not impressed with Fodder Tosser, personally.
No. But we are onto a legitimate card. Cauldra Complete. So this gets back to like that helm and shield and armor of Cauldra or whatever. 7 mana, colorless or generic. Legendary artifact equipment, living weapon, indestructible. Equipped creature gets +5/+5. Has first strike, trample, indestructible, haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a creature, exile that creature. It's a lot of the words creature in a single sentence.
Love it.
Cost 7 to equip. Gets a living weapon. It's indestructible. This is probably pretty darn good in Stoneforge, right?
Okay, if you have Stoneforge Mystics and you get your hands on one of these, hold on to this card. I think this is the type of card you'll never need more than one. If you have a Karn the Great Creator deck and package, and you open one of these, hold on to this card. Honestly, Shane, it's 7 mana. You can play this on turn 3 in Tron.
You could also do that with Batterskull. No one plays Batterskull on Tron. You don't need it.
But this is better than Batterskull in Tron.
I don't know.
Because I don't think Tron needs like the life gain off of Batterskull.
Well, the good thing about Batterskull is the return to your hand, but this doesn't have.
So what?
Okay. I don't think this will see Tron play, even though it says 7.
Yeah. I mean,
even though it's that tasty 7.
God, it's so sweet and spicy. Here's the other thing. You know, people love to focus on the bounce ability on Batterskull. Batterskull is the only equipment that has that, and it's not the only equipment we play in Stoneforge decks. And I don't think it's why we play a powerful equipment. It's one of the things that makes it really good, but I think if you have a Stoneforge package, this card is going to see some play in that deck.
Yeah, I think this card's going to see play.
Honestly, just play it with your Batterskull. Sometimes you're going to need the life gain on Batterskull, and maybe you need it. Maybe you're in a matchup where having that bounce ability could be relevant. Other times, this is just going to close out games faster. And
yeah, I mean, you want this in Stoneforge decks. The end. It's a living weapon that is dope.
Yeah, I think this is actually one of the best cards in the set.
I'll be surprised, but just because I don't think Stoneforge is amazing, it just sort of maintains itself as like an adequate deck. But it might see play in other decks.
Hey, and I'm an adequate player.
Yeah.
All right. Liquid Metal Torque.
No.
Liquid Metal Coating is just better. This does tap for mana. I don't think it's worth it.
I think it's funny if you read it as Liquid Metal Toque. It's like a little hat.
That's what toque means?
Yeah, I think it's like the Canadian term, I think, for like a beanie.
Okay.
Canadians, get at me if I'm wrong.
Canadians, get at us. Sponsor our podcast, Trudeau. Monoscallion.
No.
Mere Scrappling.
Probably not.
Nettle Cyst.
I don't think it does anything. I'm happy to be wrong.
Yeah, it's really weird. Not all living weapon cards are good. Ornithopter of Paradise.
I love that Jimmy Buffett song.
If this were 1 mana, it would be an instant sleeve, but it's 2 mana, and I feel like that alone just kind of makes it unplayable.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's weird how many cards when they go from 1 to 2 get bad.
Yeah.
Ornithopter of Paradise.
Sanctuary Raptor, that's a pass.
Cool bird.
Scion of Draco. This is a card.
Yeah, it's a card.
It's a 12 mana 4/4, and that's it.
That sounds bad.
Actually, there is more text on it. It has Delirium, where it costs 2 less to cast for each basic land type among lands you control. So,
okay. So if you have all 5 basic land types, it costs 2 generic mana.
Right. Well, if you have your Evolving Wilds, or if you turn 1 into a Triome and then turn 2 into a Shockland that's got, whatever lands aren't on the Triome, then you have a 2 mana 4/4 flyer. But it also reads, each creature you control has vigilance if it's white, hexproof if it's blue, lifelink if it's black, first strike if it's red, and it's green.
Oh, I see. Those are words as part of the pie. I see.
Domain is a deck that people keep talking about, but even though you can't draw this with a Niv Mizzet Reborn, it does really good work for your Niv Mizzet specifically. And I wonder if maybe that deck can just throw one of these in there, because it's going to be a 2-drop in that deck a lot.
Even if it's not a 2-drop, I think it has some chops. I mean, I don't know. I'm surprised this is mythic. I mean, I understand why it is. Just simply because for flavor reasons, I think, and maybe limited reasons. I think the card will be okay. If the domain decks are good, it's probably a part of them. I don't know.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Sojourner's Companion. Soul Talisman.
This card annoys me.
Yeah.
It exists. It's why. Suspend 3, pay 1 generic. You pay 1 generic, exile it from a 3-time counters, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it's a soul ring that takes 3 turns to get going. And then you have a soul ring. You tap it for 2 colorless mana. I don't think it does anything.
Yeah, you're probably right. If Soul Ring was modern legal, it would see play.
Yeah.
But probably only because it's so powerful on turn 1.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as powerful on turn 3.
No. There's other ways to ramp. If you draw this, it's just like no. It's not like a ramp spell that you're casting for 3 mana. You're like, well, I'll have this going in 3 turns. It's like, no, that's not what I want to be doing.
It should have been a Mox. It should have been called Soul Mox.
Yeah.
All right. Up next, Steel Dromedary.
No.
It's a camel.
It's bad.
Sword of Hearth and Home.
I think this is a commander sword much more than I think it is a constructed sword, because this, I think it's tempting to be like, yeah, but this is what these colors want to be doing. But then,
what does it do, Shane? What do these colors do?
Fine. Okay. You get plus, it's like all the other swords. It costs 3. It's an equipment artifact. You get +2/+2. It gets you protection from green and from white. Whenever the equipped creature deals damage, combat damage to a player, exile up to 1 target creature you own. Then search your library for a basic land card. Put both cards onto the battlefield under your control and shuffle. So basically, it blinks a creature and ramps you a land. Okay? It costs 2 to equip. I don't think this does anything that you need to be doing in Modern that you can't be doing more easily with other things like Flicker Wisps or Stoneforge Mystics, or I'm not Stoneforge Mystics, or Ephemerates, things like that. I don't think this sort of fits into that strategy. Maybe it does. I'd be more surprised. I think it's a commander sword, and that's fine.
Shane, my poor memory is showing here, but when we did the Soul Herder deck dive, I honestly can't remember if that deck ran Stoneforge.
Good question. I don't know.
I just feel like this is going to snowball in any deck that runs it, because any deck that runs it is generating a ton of blink ability anyway. I'm getting from chat that Soul Herder decks do not run Stoneforge.
Yeah, I just don't. Here's the thing. I don't think it has a home now, and I don't think it's good enough that you build a deck around it. And so that just, to me, is like a commander sword.
Yeah. Protection from white is not irrelevant, especially if like people start playing more Solitude, which is just that elemental Swords to Plowshares. Keep an eye on it. Swords are interesting. Most of them are whatever, but I can see this one having a very specific home. It's not just going to be a generic card in your Stoneforge packages.
All right, let me take us out of the artifacts, okay?
Please.
We'll pass on Tormod's Cryptkeeper. We'll pass on Vectis Gloves. We'll pass on Void Mirror. Even though this is a hate card, it's a 2-mana artifact. I guess we're not passing on it. 2-mana artifact. Whenever a player casts a spell, if no colored mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. Look, you put all the hate you want in this world. You're not going to stop me. You're never going to stop me. I'm going to keep casting colorless spells.
I think this is a new auto-include in Karn boards. And
whenever a player casts a spell, if no colored mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. That seems bad in Karn boards, Stan.
Well, there are Karn decks that aren't Tron decks. Not to mention, Mono Green Tron can easily produce green mana to cast any of its spells.
I mean, here's my thing about Karn Wish boards. They're already stretched pretty thin because unless you're Eldrazi Tron, you're not running like 14 colorless artifacts that you can fetch up, right? And Eldrazi Tron's not going to run it. So this, like Eldrazi Tron or maybe even regular Tron, would have to be so strong that you want to play this card over other options. And I think there are already other options that might be doing it better.
But don't you want to live in a world where every Karn deck is just devoting all 15 sideboard slots to Karn targets? Doesn't that sound good?
I don't know. I think the card is marginal, and there's other ways to stop decks doing this kind of stuff. Like just play Stony Silence. I guess if you have to be in white for that. I don't know. I don't think it does enough. I think it's another annoying thing that gives people another option against Eldrazi and Tron decks. But
fair enough. Okay, next card. I've got some hot takes about this card. It's Zabaz, the Glimmer Wasp.
Yeah, because this card's good.
It's a 1-mana 0/0 modular. It doesn't have flying, but it looks like it should. Modular 1. If a modular triggered ability would put 1 or more 1/1 counters on a creature you control, that many plus 1/1 counters are put on it. It has a red ability to destroy target artifact you control. Okay. Or you can pay white and it gains flying until end of turn. Can I give you a called shot, Shane?
I hope so.
I think this card is so good, it's going to make it into a Modern Challenge week 1 of Modern Horizons 2.
I mean, it was already in the first place deck.
Hey, nailed it.
You nailed it, buddy.
Called it.
Yeah, it's a good card.
The fact that you can destroy artifacts you control as an on-demand way to make a ton of tokens off your Hangerback Walker, or trigger Modular 1 and start chaining things with your Ozolith, I think is so cool. It's legendary, so maybe it's a little awkward in multiples, but maybe not, because it also has modular. So if you cast the first one, you can just start moving tokens around. It's kind of like benefits from its own legendary rule ability.
Yeah.
I think it's a really elegant design and a great get for those Hardened Scale decks that had been struggling for some time now.
Yeah, and being able to destroy your own artifacts is like weirdly valuable for modular decks. It's like, yeah, if I could destroy this, I get 4 counters. You know what I mean? Like, I really wish I could do that. Oh, wait, I can. Without doing anything, just paying a single red. Card good. Card real good. And of course, it costs 1. Guess what gets that?
Fatal Push.
No. Urza Saga.
Lava Dart.
That's fine. Okay. I think this is definitely one of the cooler cards.
Wait, I have a question. Does this come down as a 2/2? Because it has modular 1, but its ability doubles tokens.
Stan, this is how bad I am at Magic sometimes. It's like I don't actually know. I think it doesn't because it has to be on the battlefield. It can't.
It comes into play with the tokens.
Yeah, it comes into play. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yeah, it's like Meddling Mage. Probably not exactly like Meddling Mage.
What about if you play extra copies into the legend roll? Do the second copies come down with more tokens?
Yeah, when does the sack thing happen? I think it does. I think you're
that's
good.
A yes. I think that's a yes.
Yeah, you broke it.
All right.
You broke it. Stan, I want to talk about a few things.
Our Twitch mod, Turtle Power, coming in the clutch, telling us how this card works.
Okay, we're into the lands. Arid Mesa, no. Why would you want to pay? You have to. Okay, let's see all things to do with this card. Okay,
this card doesn't make any sense.
You have to. It doesn't do anything by itself. You have to pay a life and tap it. Okay, weird. And then you have to sacrifice it, and you get either a mountains or a plains. Why not just play a mountains or a plains, Stan?
You can also play Evolving Wilds, and you don't have to pay the life.
Yeah, or Prismatic Vista. Oh, that has to pay a life too.
Yeah, Fabled Passage. You can do a Fabled Passage, get Wooburg.
Stan, Prismatic Vista, isn't that just strictly better than this?
I think so. I think so, Shane.
Okay, thank you, Wazi, for reprinting the enemy fetches. We appreciate it.
I don't see it.
Okay, the indestructible artifact lands are interesting. And they come in all 10 colors, right? There's all 10 color combos. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so cool. They come into play tapped. They're indestructible. They tap for whatever color combination you want. If you like enemy and ally, that's all of them. So yeah, these will be cool. I don't know if they're going to do anything right away. They're pauper legal. So yeah, go for it. Have fun.
We have so many more cards, Shane.
I know. That's why I was saying I was worried about how much time we had. So, okay, let's talk about, there's Power Depot, which you mentioned earlier. That's potential modular thing. We talked about Urza's Saga. Urza's Saga is probably broken. Stan, let's go into these reprint cards.
Wait, okay? we also have Yavimaya Cradle.
Oh, yeah. The green Urborg. This will do something.
Oh, yeah. It may not be today. It may not be tomorrow, but it's probably going to be today or tomorrow.
It was already in Yogg in the top 8 of the challenge. So why not? And so was Grist. So I should have mentioned that. Yawgmoth, Grist, Yavimaya. The deck has some mana issues. Some people are on it. Some people are off it for Yogg. I wouldn't be surprised if more people are on it in the end.
Can Tron just run one of these two? Get around Void Mirror?
I mean, you can. Frequently, you are getting like your 4 basic forests. Mm-hmm. So there is an issue where you could run out. So who knows? I might try one if I open one.
Yeah, this is really cool. I like it with any deck that runs Utopia Sprawl as well.
Okay, let's talk about, I want to talk about our takes on Horizons 2. I think this is the only time we'll really have to do that, to like really talk about Horizons 2 and like our favorite things. So let's talk about your favorite modern reprints into the set that we haven't talked about already.
Okay. Yeah, we don't need to list off all the cards we're skipping.
No.
Counterspell, that's a good one.
Yeah. I think we talked about that a couple times.
Card I love, excited to play.
Yeah.
And you know what I love? I love Gorilla Shaman.
Good. I'm glad you do. So Gorilla Shaman is XX, 1 generic, destroy target non-creature artifact with mana value X. It's kind of expensive, but it just stays there. Just can stay there and destroy artifacts.
It's a 1 mana 1/1, so it's really cheap to play. I think it's something that you can explore if you have liquid metal coating or liquid metal torque.
Yeah.
This is a card that I've played with in cubes, and it's very powerful in the right scenarios. I'm excited to see what it can do. Maybe this is something that you can play alongside your Karn the Great Creators.
Flame Rift, probably have to talk about this. I'm not sure it gets there even in burn. It's 1 in a red sorcery. Flame Rift deals 4 damage to each player. So it's you and all your friends at the table. So people are talking about this as like, hey, one of the main reasons that burn goes into Boros at all is for Boros Charm. This is kind of a lot like Boros Charm. I'm not sure if this gets there. We'll see. There's all sorts of cards that burn gets the option to play. This is good, I think, for a deck that maybe wants to go straight red, or they just want another 2 mana 4 damage spell. Okay. Important. Goblin Bombardment. Another really important card. 1 in a red. Enchantment. Sacrifice a creature. Goblin Bombardment deals 1 damage to any target. That's it. No costs, no anything. You can just sacrifice creatures all day, deal 1 damage to any target. I will get into this later if we have time, but I think there will be Goblin Bombardment decks. I think it is a mostly overlooked card right now because it's reprint. I think that Bombardment is probably one of the top, 20 cards in the set.
Does it need to be in Goblin decks, or can it just be in any deck that wants to?
Oh yeah, any kind of sack engine deck will want this. There's a lot of ways to win with this card, generate value with this card. I think it's going to be fine.
I don't think there's a lot to say about Imperial Recruiter that hasn't been said.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's gonna go in a ton of decks. It's gonna enable a lot of things. It'll be played fairly and unfairly. It's gonna be one of the most played cards in the set, I think, ultimately.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what it can do.
Query on Ranger, Stan. I think we talked to this briefly, right?
We have not gotten to this one yet. I'm excited to see what this sets up in Elves. If you've never played with Kyrion Ranger in Legacy Elves, you can generate a ton of mana with this bad girl. 1 mana, 1/1 reads return a forest you control to its owner's hand, untap target creature, activate only once each turn. Not only does this let you generate extra mana with things like Archdruid or Heritage Druids, but you can also capitalize on games where you only have 1 land, where you can tap that forest, use her to bounce the forest back to your hand, play that land again, tap it for another green. So really interesting card, really powerful in older formats, and I think it's a really cool upgrade for the modern version.
Will help Elves. Titania, Protector of Argoth, 3 green, legendary creature elemental. When she ETBs, you return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Whenever a land you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 5/3 green elemental creature token. She's a 5/3. This card will do something. Too much value, too easy to accrue ongoing value for it not to do something.
Yeah, I mean, it's already been picked up by Doomwake in Primeval Titan decks. With Zuran Orb. Card's good.
Shardless Agent. I think you talked about that already. This card will do something. It's a 3 mana Cascade spell.
It already has.
Yeah.
Side by side with Fire Ice, which we jumped over.
I think Fire and Ice is probably, it does enough where I think it's going to see more play than you suspect it will. So I think especially in the Cascade decks where it gives you interaction options, but it has a 4 mana value card.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Vindicate.
Yeah. Simple, clean, beautiful card.
1 white/black sorcery, destroy target, permanent.
Anything.
Esper's blowing up your lands.
Yeah, the hard part is they still cost 3.
Yeah.
The easy part is it destroys target permanent.
Also, if you have a Teferi Time Raveler down and you tick him up, you can play this at instant speed. I don't think a lot of people notice that.
Okay, that's good. I like it.
Curse Totem.
Yeah, I mean, stretches out that wishboard some more. I mean, it even hoses mana abilities.
Mm-hmm. Activated abilities of creatures can't be activated.
For 2 mana artifact.
2 mana artifact.
Pretty good. Put that with your Blood Moon and smoke it.
Wow. I think the last card that caught my eye, and Shane, if you want to go back and mention one of the other ones, is Zuran Orb, which is the 0 mana artifact, sack a land, you gain 2 life.
Yes, so easy, so tutorable, so 0.
Yeah, so it has a little bit of a combo with Titania where you can play your Zuran Orb early, and then when you play Titania Protector of Argoth, grab a land from your yard. That's value. Make an extra body.
It's really good. Okay, Stan, we've got 2 lands. I think Mishra's Factory is probably fine.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this one. Yeah,
so it's a tap to add colorless, pay 1 to make it a 2/2 artifact creature until end of turn, or tap it to make an assembly worker creature on the battlefield, get +1/+1 until end of turn.
I think it's really cool. I love how you can just grow it over and over and over until you're ready to attack with it. You do expose it to removal, but I've never played with this card. I've always kind of wanted to, and I'm pretty curious to see what it does. Maybe it can be a control finisher.
I think it's probably just okay. It's probably not good enough. We'll see.
Maybe you can even throw it into Scales. Generate a ton of tokens that you start moving around with Ozolith.
The next land I think is kind of being slept on, kind of being overlooked. That's Riptide Laboratory. Tap to add colorless land, or 1 in the blue tap, return target wizard you control to its owner's hand. I think this used to be kind of better in like ones like Spells, Stutter, Sprite, or whatever, were like legitimate things to play. Mm-hmm. There are Snapcaster Mage locks to be found here. There's counterspell snap. There's stuff to do with this card. I think it'll be fine. I think that we'll see some play and annoy you.
Dave, if you're out there, did you ever think Shane would be the one who refers to Snapcaster Mage Locks?
No.
I never saw it coming.
Stan, that's the set review. We did it.
We talked about every card in great detail.
I'm proud of us. Last week and this week were a lot of fun. We have about 10 minutes. What I'd love to do is just blast through like a quick sort of best of, worst of, things we're unsure about. I think it'll be a lot of fun. We don't have to do a lot of explaining. We just have to do a lot of talking. I don't even want to take a break. I don't even want to waste the 15 seconds.
Yeah.
On the break. Let's just go into it. Let's go into the faux wind down, and it's our picks to click and misclick and all like, oh, picks to misclick. Why have we never used that before?
I like that.
Let's save that for later.
This is where I think our spiciest and potentially most embarrassing called shots are going to happen.
If you don't call a shot, are you really a podcast?
We've written a handful of questions to kind of categorize the set. Shane, I'm with you. Let's go through them as quickly as possible, starting with what we think our best new to modern reprint is.
Yeah. Imperial Recruiter. I think that this will have the widest range of applications, potentially be game breaking in its impact. I think it's going to be more impactful, more broadly than Counterspell.
Wow. What does Counterspell have to do with anything?
Hurry.
Apropos of the initial tournament results where Charlotte's Agent was super played, this was already kind of on my watch list just because Charlotte's Agent requires so little setup compared to something like Charlotte's Agent or Imperial Recruiter, where you want to put Recruiter into a deck. Agent, you can kind of sort of throw into any deck that can cast it without necessarily, stretching it in a specific direction to make it worthwhile. So I think that's a card that's going to see a lot of play for a really long time.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Stan, what's your favorite new card in the set? Favorite new card, whatever.
Because I did not have a knee-jerk reaction to this, I wrote down my Timmy, Johnny, and Spike cards.
Please, beautiful.
My Timmy card, Cauldra Complete.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the Timmy card, we know it's a good set.
My Johnny card, Ave Progenitor Ooze.
Yeah.
The green storm payoff that makes a ton of tokens.
I like it.
And my Spike card, Ignoble Hierarch.
Good picks. Shout outs to all the Timmys, Tammys, Spikes out there. Mine is, I think, Dothy Voidwalker in raw power, Esper Sentinel in cool factor and also being a human, and Grist the Hunger Tide in cool design.
Love it. Best creatures. Again, really hard to just pinpoint individual creatures. Yeah. I broke this down into colors. How did you break this down?
Just, I think Ignoble Hierarch, like you mentioned, I think it's just utility, great card, and Zabaz the Glimmer Wasp, because it's, I think, going to revitalize an old deck. Wow. How about you?
White, Esper Sentinel.
Yeah, beautiful.
Blue, Subtlety.
Cool. Is that a creature?
Technically, it's an elemental, yes. Black, Grief.
Really?
Yeah.
I think Dothy might have something to say about that, but I'm also super high on that card.
Yeah, they're so neck and neck. I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I just think Grief provides so much value throughout the game at different points of the game, and it can be such a backbreaking card early. Why not play him in the same deck as Dothy?
Why not both?
Red, and this is the hardest, but my gut says the best red card is Imperial Recruiter.
Wow, even over Ragavan or that Delirium Flyer thing everyone loves.
Even over the Delirium Flyer thing. And then green, agreed with you, Ignoble Hierarch. I didn't mention a colorless card, let's just say Cauldra Complete, but gold, Charlotte's Agent as well.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
Best Elemental Incarnation.
Okay, I think Solitude's probably the best in raw power. Grief is probably the most overrated and overhyped, but still great. And I think Endurance is the most underrated.
What is Endurance, the green one?
The green one, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of leaning into exactly what you said, but I think the best one is still just Grief because it's proactive. And I really like that it's more or less good whenever. White and blue ones are fantastic too, of course, but Grief looks like the one that can potentially actually inspire its own decks or slot into existing strategies. Shane, Do you think there's any cards that are likely to get banned in Modern out of this set?
I mean, I don't think anything's going to get banned quickly, besides maybe Urza's Saga. I think Dothy Voidwalker, again, is begging to be broken or to be seen as annoyingly overpowered and built around in a way that's like, I'm only trying to use Dothy Voidwalker to do something as broken as possible. And that might make other strategies have to be sort of shaped around its existence. And so I wouldn't be surprised if eventually what Dothy does is considered too annoying.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. I kind of agree with your initial position because they hired so many people to help design the set. I think they wanted to be abundantly careful that nothing was going to present another Hogaak scenario. And whatever people say the quote new Hogaak is seems to change every week. There was a point people said it was Ragavan. There was a point people said it was Asmore. Now we're saying it's Urza Saga. We keep moving the goalposts. Maybe there's no new Hogaak. Maybe they're all Hogaaks. But when I look for cards that are potentially breakable, I can't shake the feeling that it's some of these black graveyard cards that are really asking for trouble. Whether it's Magus of the Bridge, which is templated very similar to a previously banned card. Maybe it's Echoing Return, which can be like a 3-for-1, if not more, in some really nonsense shells. Maybe even Unmarked Grave is just really, really too efficient. I hope not. I want to see these cards do good work, but it'll be exciting to see if they kind of messed up Graveyard all over again.
Yeah. Stan, what do you think the biggest single upgrade to an existing deck is?
I think it's just Counterspell.
You think that's the biggest upgrade to a deck?
Yeah, it's just now essentially the best 2-mana Counterspell that you can ever play.
Yeah.
And we knew it would be, and I think we're happy to have it. And it's just going to stick around forever. As long as there's control decks, they're going to play Counterspell, and that's basically solved as soon as it was spoiled.
I tried to go on how much better I think it would make the deck, not just like, you know what I mean? Like, I think Counterspell is like probably, it's definitely better, but how much better? But I think Svelin of Sea and Sky to Merfolk is like just such a huge boon. Also Persist to Reanimator strategies. Yeah. What's next?
So let's channel Dave a little bit. He loves talking about
Dave's here.
He loves talking about trends, right? Do you think there are any modern decks that have big up arrows next to them because of this set?
I mean, I am informed by some early results, so I have to apologize here, but I do think, I mean, before we would ask this, I would probably say Vengevine style decks, Humans, Reanimator, and Modular Scales decks, simply because of all the tools that these decks got. I think it's kind of a no-brainer to say that these decks have an up arrow next to them.
Agreed. Certainly Vengevine, certainly Scales. I think Kiki Jiki, because if Imperial Recruiter might have some spicy new technology that makes it more consistent and resilient. 5-color Niv got a lot of cool technology from the gold cards that I want to see if they adopt any of that. And of course, just regular old Control got both free spells and hyper efficient spells, whether that's Counterspell or Vindicate in an Esper Control build.
How about that down arrow?
Give me that down arrow. Tron.
They're always coming for me.
I think Tron is perhaps the biggest down arrow deck that I can see right now. Hope to be wrong because I spent a bunch of money on it.
Yeah, it's not going to, I think there's always more reasons not to play Tron, right? There's not always a lot more to.
Yeah. All right. Maybe this is a hot take, but I kind of think Heliod Company seems to have a down arrow next to it.
I mean, the Evoke stuff is good. There's just a lot of ways you can tap out or just, not be punished, I think. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to interact with what Heliod's doing now.
A lot of ways.
I think Death Shadow is really bad right now. I mean, potentially for a number of reasons. Solitude, of course. But also people, I think, are playing to the battlefield with these small creature combo strategies now. Whether it's like Scales or it's Humans or it's like Reanimator, like a sacrifice small creature strategy, like a Vengevine type thing. Death Shadow doesn't love a lot of blockers. And I think there's just a lot of ways for Death Shadows to get stopped right now because I think Solitude will be popular. And that's just huge against it.
For sure. Yeah, I hadn't thought about Death Shadow at all. I just keep seeing cards that I think I want to put in Death Shadow, but I haven't considered that maybe the deck is about to get bad.
You still need Death Shadow to be good. The card itself.
Best new or mostly new deck in Modern that you think will get created.
I mentioned this in the review part. I think Goblin Bombardment Sack will be a thing.
Yeah, for me, it's the Reanimator decks.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a non-deck right now, so it'll basically be a new deck.
Totally. Do you think there are decks that people are going to try that won't be good enough?
I don't think Domain Zoo is going to be that good. I just don't. I don't think the tools are there to warrant the setup cost and the setup issues there. I also don't think Enchantress will ever be good. But I could be wrong. What about you?
Hey, I agree with Domain. I don't think I'm as impressed with it as basically the rest of the internet. Because I don't know if I want to play tap Trilands in my aggro strategies.
You don't? That's weird.
It is, but that's me. I'm quirky like that. I hate to say it because I just talked about this deck having an up arrow, but I'm like deep down inside, I'm worried that Kiki Jiki is a liability. Like it's so hard to cast, even in decks with Blood Moon, it can be so hard to cast sometimes.
Here's hot take time. What are your most overlooked or underrated cards in the set?
Okay, underrated, Dragon's Rage Channeler.
This is like one of the most overrated cards, I think.
I don't see anyone talking about it except maybe some people in our Slack.
I feel like I've heard about it like at every podcast because it's like everyone's like, is this Delver? Is this not Delver?
I guess I've been listening to the wrong episodes. I feel like people are so hung up on Urza and Asmore and the domain cards that it hasn't gotten as much attention as I think it has, but I'm glad to be wrong, I guess, on this one. So yeah, what about you?
I think Chatterfang, you know me and my feelings on the squirrel card is I don't love them. I think Chatterfang is like probably sneaky cool. I think it's doing something in Yogg decks. I think there's something to be said for making a bunch of tokens, sacrificing tokens. I think there's something to Chatterfang. Riptide Laboratory, that's the wizard bounce land. Bone Shards? Bone Shards is really good, I think.
Oh yeah, Bone Shards rules.
I mean, 1 black mana to discard or sack a creature to destroy a creature or a planeswalker. It's great. Prismatic Ending. I just can't believe how little I'm hearing people talk about this. Like, I think Prismatic Ending is huge. That's the X white converge exile spell. Non-land permanent.
That's another card that I'm like 99% positive I've already seen appear in blue-white X control decks from the challenges.
And then Flame Blitz. People, no one's talking about the enchantment that deals damage to planeswalkers at the end of turn. I think that's a huge sideboard get. Okay, I think we don't have too much time left. Let's talk about our overrated cards. I'll start.
Please.
Dragon Rage Channeler. It's Dragon Channeler is like it's a cool card with a tough to enable effect, especially early. Like if you think you're going to untap with this as like a 3/3 flyer that has to attack each turn, you are not playing my modern that I've been playing a little bit sometimes. I mean, this also doesn't need to be enabled early. It doesn't have to. It could just be an efficient 3/3 flyer later on. I don't know. I think people keep looking at the ceiling of this card and not the floor. I also think they're looking at the ceiling and not the floor of Ragavan. I think Ragavan's really good, but 2 things. Casting your opponent's spells kind of stuff is often useless in Modern. But that being said, the snowball of the treasure tokens is legitimate. But then there's so many ways this card gets stopped. Any creature, any 1 mana removal spell. The dash kind of makes up for that. But I think Ragavan is cool. And I think Ragavan is the kind of card that can snowball heavily. But I think that there's a lot of ways to fight this card and people will be fighting it. And I think it'll end up being fine. It also, I don't know what home it goes into. Like this doesn't go into like burn. You know what I mean?
Maybe it just actually goes into every red deck. But I do agree with you. That one is overrated. It's on my list as well. It was the first card I saw compared to Hope. I may have mentioned that already. You know what I think is kind of a cold card?
Yeah, tell me.
Grist.
Yeah, you think so? I mean, I think it depends on what you want to put it in. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah,
and I think if it sees play, it's just going to see pretty narrow play.
Yeah, I think that's fine. But I think you're right, where it's not like some busted 3-mana planeswalker. It's not like Oko or something.
Shane, are there cards you're actually afraid of that may be messing up Modern?
Urza Saga, Dothy again. I think Persist is dangerous. I think all of the elementals, of course, are dangerous. Like, it's just like, I just don't know why they made the elementals. Like, they go through all this trouble to be like, we're not paying free cards. We're not playing free cards. We're not playing reduced casting cost cards. Okay, well, maybe give you force. And then it's like, here's some elementals. And it's just like, what? What are you doing? It's like free with upside potentially because you can do all sorts of like sack shenanigans or something like that. I don't like it.
I'm a little nervous about Asmore.
Yeah. Cool card.
Yeah, it's essentially a guaranteed 2-for-1, right? If she hits the board, you get that cookbook. And that cookbook in and of itself generates a ton of value as well. I'm worried both sides of that combo might also be a little too pushed in the end.
It's pretty good. They're definitely like, we want you to play with this funny card we made, funny named card at least. Stan, we're long on time. What's your final take on Modern Horizons 2?
All right.
Final take.
I think Modern Horizons 2 is massive.
Oh yeah. Huge.
Absolutely massive. I think MH2 is going to be a more apparent turning point for Modern than MH1 was. And if I if my prediction ends up being correct, I think there's going to be a very clear line in the sand of when MH2 impacted the format. And it's not that hard for me to at least imagine an environment in the future where any deck that is playable and, sees consistent results, whether it's in leagues or challenges or at the LGS, they're playing something from this set because it's
100%.
generating so much value, providing so many efficient, interesting, unique, or redundant new tools for every color, every type of deck. I think this was designed to be a pretty balanced set, but also designed to be powerful enough that people will need to pick it up to keep up with the format, which I don't know how much of an appetite I have for that to happen over and over and over again. But I'm hopeful that this one makes the format more fun without being particularly degenerate, and I'm okay with waiting like 5 years until the next one. I kind of hope we don't have to wait only 2 years until the next one.
Yeah, I'm on board with almost everything you said there, I think, Stan, which is just like, this feels pretty soon after the first one. It feels more impactful. It seems specifically designed to make big changes in the format. I think there's some big risks that they took here. I'm feeling positive about the format being shaken up, though. It's felt a little stale to me for a while. I think there's going to be more significant shifts and that will endure longer. And I think you said kind of the same thing, like then Horizons 1. Like Horizons 1 was like, here's some obviously bannable strategies, like Foodgaak, like even Urza felt too powerful early. And I don't really want Modern to be changed like this. I don't want it, but it's like, this is what's going to happen. And I think this will accomplish the goal of selling packs, of making a cool limited format, of giving players a lot of different tools to experiment with and to play with and to have fun with. And I do think that the change will be positive, but at what cost? Financially and sort of logistically, and in terms of just dealing with the sea change of all of this. This is a huge power level change. It's a huge drop of just tons of cards designed to see play, designed to be purchased and want to change decks. And you're right, Stan. Every deck we see moving forward will almost certainly see Horizons 2 cards.
Shane, I've got bad news for you.
Please.
That wraps up this week's show.
It was another good one, just the two of us, my friend.
Dave, we hope you can join us back next week. If not, I think Shane and I can just take it on together forever.
I really love Dave on the show, though, Stan.
I'm at the point where I think I can just do it alone too.
Okay, just run it solo. It's good. We'll retire.
Just me reading the notes that the you two write, and I'll do them in your voices as well. Listeners, if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you get the latest episodes as soon as they come out. And if you use Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and review. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can do so on Twitter at @thedivedown, all one word. You can even email us, thedivedown@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, you can join our Patreon over at patreon.com/thedivedown. Thank you to everyone who's already a patron. You keep us going every week. And if you want to support us, it's really easy to do so. Great perks at every tier. Also, shout out to Mana Traders for sponsoring the Dive Down. You can support our show while playing Magic if you sign up for Mana Traders using promo code the Dive Down 2021, all one word. The numbers are our numbers. Get 15% off your first 2 months of renting Magic Online cards, including Modern Horizons 2 cards. They're spicy. I looked into that Underworld cookbook. A lot of spice. As always, special thanks to the bands Nowhere and Spacesplit for letting us use their music. And until next week, go. Break. Modern!
Boom, 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 boom.
Winky, winky.